Welcome, ladies and gents. Chris Andre here. You can find me at BetBoxing on Twitter for boxing-related tweets. I want to talk about the Matchroom undercard tonight on Sky Sports. I want to talk about Lerrone Richards, and I want to talk about Donte Dixon. Two prospects, different stages of their careers. Donte Dixon's had 4 fights, 5 I think after tonight. 3 knockouts out of those 5. And Lerrone Richards has had, I think it's the 14th fight tonight, and he's moving on to a European title next. So they're both sort of at different levels, but Lerrone Richards is a guy who's still climbing, and that's what I mean by prospect. He's still climbing up that ladder. He hasn't peaked yet. So let's talk about them, because they've received very contrasting reviews tonight. So I want to discuss a little bit both fighters. Now, I have to say I'm impressed with both fighters in very different ways. Lerrone Richards I saw fight a long time ago now. A very long time ago. I've been following his career since the early days, and I'm a fan. I've always been a fan. But a lot of people, I understand, are not, based on what we've seen on Twitter tonight. He was fighting a guy called Laine, who came to survive. Lerrone Richards, at the time, I just thought he wanted to get some rounds in there, because, you know, Richards wanted to survive, and Laine wanted to survive, and Richards wasn't really putting his foot on the gas. So it came across almost as though he's just going through the motions, and this is what I thought, because he's been out for a year or so. From the 6th round onwards, he started to put his foot on the gas, and I thought, okay, he's going to get this guy out of there. It was an 8-round fight. It went the distance. Now, online, he was receiving a lot of criticism, and I said I really liked him, and a few people messaged me to say, basically, look, it's fair enough, but he's got to up his game. He's got to be getting guys out of there. If he wants to be a crowd pleaser, he's got to be a lot more aggressive, and there isn't much punching power there. Now, some people are just talking sheerly about, you know, what he offers as a spectacle, but then there are others that think that it will stop him progressing beyond European level. Or even the trainer Billy Nelson feels that there are other prospects that could knock him out inside a round or two, because he wouldn't be able to keep them off in terms of his power. So let's talk about this stuff. At Tony Pem on Twitter, who is Charlie Burley TBE, his little Twitter moniker. He's the one that approached me with the criticism to say, look, it's all well and good, but he needs to start getting this fella out of there, and if he wants to be a ticket seller, basically. And I disagreed with him at that point, and I was saying, look, I think he's just working on stuff. I don't think he's actually trying to get the geezer out of there. And at the end of the fight, it became clear that actually Tony was right, because the post-fight interview suggested that Coldwell was the guy that was sort of screaming for him, don't let him rest, don't let Laine rest, because he's got this thing, Richards, where he's coming in, he lands his shots, then he gets back out. And he's very cautious as a fighter, very slick, but very cautious. So by the looks of it, his trainer did want him to get him out of there, even if it was late in this 8-round fight, and he wasn't able to. So that has come across with as people saying, okay, well, he doesn't have the power to knock guys out. He doesn't have the power to break a guy down. I'm going to have to disagree with that section, okay, with the people like Billy Nelson. Not because I'm undermining their knowledge on boxing or anything. It's just a different take. The way I see it is that I agreed very much with George Groves in the post-fight interview. He's so talented, Richards, and he does a lot of good things. He's got wonderful balance. His distance control was excellent. His shot variety is very good, upstairs, downstairs. He's very, very good at lining you up with that straight left hand. He's a southpaw, and what he'll do is he'll always be aware of disguising how he lines up his left hand, and then he lets his hands go. He'll let his hand go, 1 or 2 shot, usually 1, 2, maybe 3, then he'll get out. And so he never stays in the pocket enough to really consistently build on that damage to start causing problems where it's going to knock you out. But what it does do, because he's rangy and he's light on his feet, what he's able to do is fight almost like a high-level amateur, where he'll jump in, land shots, and get back out. It's not really that pro style where he's looking to really bust you up, but there's enough there to keep you off balance and win, you know, rounds in terms of, you know, piling up the rounds. To me, because of his ability to maintain range, it's going to make him tricky. You know, you don't have to necessarily be a big puncher to keep a fighter off. You know, there are a lot of fighters who weren't monster punchers that have the ability to keep fighters off. Paulie Malignaggi was very good at maintaining range. Amir Khan wasn't a huge puncher, but, you know, he had more spite, I think, than Lerrone Richards. But the point is, he was able to keep a lot of guys off. Now, at world level, of course, because he had some issues with his chin as well, you could punch with Khan at the same time, and you could have success. But really, it was elite level guys that beat Amir Khan. You know, he got to the very, very top before he started to lose to big fighters, with the exception of Bradis Prescott when he was still a prospect. But, you know, you're looking at guys like Canelo, you're looking at guys like Danny Garcia. You know, these are top level guys. So Lerrone Richards, in my opinion, will get to the top, to the top level. How he copes there, we don't know. There are too many unknowns. We'll see that as he starts going through the ranks and he starts getting up to European level and stuff like that. But in the past, we've spoken about Willie Monroe Jr. And at the past, when he was unknown, I explained that in many ways he had a lot of criticisms that were similar. And I said, look, this is a guy to actually watch out for. I did a prospect watch video on him, and I explained that this guy is going to get to the top. Now, when he gets to the top, how he copes against the top middleweights, that's a different story. You've got Golovkin, you've got Canelo, you know, Billy Joe Saunders. But in terms of just getting to that stage, he'll get there. He's got enough there. And he did get there, and he's had a very good career. He just wasn't, you know, an elite level middleweight. Well, the similar sort of thing can perhaps apply to Richards, where he'll get there and then we'll find out more how he'll develop by the time he gets there. He's working with Coldwell now, but there's a lot there that I see that I really like. I'm not too concerned at this present moment in time with a lack of power necessarily. That will come in terms of him sitting on his shots more. As he moves back off and he comes against higher level guys that are looking to cause him serious damage, they're going to be walking onto shots too, which will magnify power. So we'll see how that goes. But so far, personally, if you forget things like ticket sales, I really like him as just a talent. Forget whether people really enjoy his style. I personally think it is very much a Puritan's sort of style, whereby you know you're a guy who likes traditional skillful boxing, almost like an amateur level, high level amateur, will enjoy what he does. But yeah, he's not going to walk in there and start busting guys up. That's not really who he is. Let me know what you think of him and his talent and his ability to go forward. The other one is Donte Dixon, who's a prospect that Billy Joe Saunders is very high on. You saw in the pre-fight, during the fight, in Billy Joe Saunders' pre-fight dressing room, because obviously he's fighting Martin Murray tonight. Billy was getting really excited. He was exerting a lot of energy on his feet as Donte Dixon really started to put his foot on in the last round to try and get Dragone out of there. There were a lot of things that I really liked that I saw about him, completely different to Richards in style. He's easier to hit than Richards. He is happy to stay in the pocket. Much of that is that he seems quite small. He's a small fighter. And so, in a way, he has to come in the pocket. He's very, very slick inside the pocket. A lot of upper body movement, a lot of subtle deflections. He's got a lot of short. He's very, very economical with his short punches. They're accurate and they're short and they seem to carry a lot of weight. And when he really put his foot on the gas in that final round, he had Dragone hurt. Dragone was holding on. If that was another round and the fight was a round longer, he gets Dragone out of there. So there was a lot to be impressed about. Curtis Woodhouse felt that he reminded him of Pernell Whitaker. Now, obviously, Pernell Whitaker, you're not going to compare a guy who's had 5 fights to Pernell Whitaker in the sense that, you know, Dixon was a lot easier to hit. But you're obviously taking into account the levels that they've had. What Curtis Woodhouse is doing is talking about the aesthetics, the certain style similarities, rather than directly comparing them. And I totally see what he says. Having said that, Whitaker was a master of defense. And although he's very slick and he's very tricky, and the way he slides in and out and dips and dives is lovely, and there are some movements there that did look very Whitaker-esque, the fact of the matter is he was still getting caught with some shots where Dragone wasn't being too creative. So it makes me wonder, going forward against guys that are able to hide their entry point, to set traps, to be more creative, to shape up as though they're going to throw a hook to the body but come upstairs and stuff like that. How good is he going to be at evading those shots or absorbing those shots? If they're landing now, maybe it's because he's throwing caution to the wind because maybe he wasn't too concerned about what Dragone had to offer. But if they're landing now and someone's a heavy-handed fighter, then, you know, he could end up in a situation where he starts eating shots that really start to affect him, and then all of a sudden the whole structure changes, the whole body positioning changes. You know, you have to be careful with guys like that. He's got to have a lot more than just upper body movement in terms of being slippery to defend shots. But he can work on his defense. For a fighter who's 5 fights in now, he looked really, really good. Let me know what you think about both of these guys. I'm going to end this video now to, you know, Martin Murray and Billy Joe Saunders are going to go at it shortly. Let me know what you think about these two prospects. Are you a fan? Is there a specific style that you don't like from either one of these guys? You know, Richards is the one getting a lot of the criticism. Or do you believe that, you know, it's just you've got to appreciate what the style that he offers and he can, you know, still get to the top? Personally, I'm a fan, I have to say. I think he's going to do really well. With Dixon, do you think the fact that shots do land could potentially cause him a problem going forward? Or is it just a case of, you know, developing that element of defense as he goes forward and it's still early days? Let me know what you think, guys. Thanks for watching. Chat to you soon.